In the 1950s, the central artery cut through the center of Boston, dividing the North End and the waterfront from the rest of the city. The idea is to build elevated highways through the center of cities to allow people to go back and forth, north and south, and even come into the city. The central artery, though, which displaced about 10,000 people, more than were displaced by the West End demolition, never really worked the way it was intended. It was a 24-hour parking lot in the center of town, choking traffic. What do you do about it, though? In the 1980s, Fred Salvucci, who was a transportation engineer from Brighton, he had been in the Little City Hall in East Boston when that neighborhood was being attacked by the expansion of the airport, devised a way of putting the artery underground. This is a 30-year mistake we are trying to bury. Salvucci went to the Massachusetts congressional delegation with this idea. And when he told Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill and Chairman of the Rules Committee Joe Moakley that he thought it would be a great improvement to depress the artery, and they asked how much will it cost, he said about $2 billion. They said, that's a lot of money. The Speaker of the Massachusetts House, George Kavarian, said Michael Dukakis' administration was proposing this. He said, if Mike Dukakis wants to depress the artery, he should just talk to it. And Barney Frank, another Massachusetts congressman, said that it would actually be cheaper to raise the city. Big problem in this, in 1970, when Massachusetts put a moratorium on highway construction, the federal government wasn't happy about giving Massachusetts money to build highways since we had said no 20 years earlier. But in the mid-1980s, O'Neill, Moakley, Salvucci get the funding to begin this project. And they combine it with another project. Boston's business community very much wanted another harbor tunnel to connect Logan Airport with the downtown. That's what the business community wanted. What Salvucci wanted was to depress the artery, and because of his experience in East Boston, he wanted to do this project without displacing any homeowners. So this project ultimately was completed without taking any private property. It costs more than $2 billion. It takes longer than it was expected. It costs about $15 billion ultimately to depress the artery, which actually makes traffic flow much more smoothly through the city of Boston. It takes longer than it was projected, but it actually took longer to build the Bunker Hill Monument than it did to depress the central artery, which is one of the great engineering feats of the 20th century. Not only was no private property taken in the building of this, Route 93 through Boston continued operating while the new road underneath was under construction. Once the new road was completed, the ugly elevated highway was taken down, opening up and connecting again the waterfront and the North End with downtown Boston. This is a new Boston. The Central Artery project had a lot of dirt removed from under the old highway and from over the Ted Williams Tunnel. That dirt was taken by barge to Spectacle Island in Boston Harbor, capping that landfill and creating a great new park, part of the Boston Harbor Islands National Park. And here on top of the new Central Artery, where the old artery rumbled through town, we also have a great open space in this new Boston. The old elevated highway was named for John Fitzgerald, Honey Fitz, mayor of Boston in the turn of the 20th century, member of Congress, and of course, the grandfather of John F. Kennedy and Senators Robert and Edward M. Kennedy. That highway was built in 1958, and you have a toll booth down here that would have gotten you into the Callahan Tunnel, which was in operation from the early years of the 20th century still to today. A toll road. You would need to pay the toll keeper as you went through. Something you do not need to do on the expressway, though you still need to pay a toll in the Callahan Tunnel. The old elevated highway was named for John Fitzgerald, member of Congress. The new road underneath our feet is named for Thomas P. O'Neill, who was John F. Kennedy's successor in the House of Representatives. This green space above it is the Rose Kennedy Greenway, a green space over the old central artery connecting the North End, where Rose Kennedy was born, with the rest of Boston. So we have here tributes to John Fitzgerald and to his son's successor his grandson's successor in Congress, and to his daughter, all in this green space, which helps to make for a new Boston.